In this video I will be reviewing the DYU A5. It's an electrical folding bike, as you can see right here. This is how you get it out of the box, plus the little box right there. The box has the things listed right here, with the only thing you have to install being the pedals. You also get 2 keys and 2 key fobs. You also get this multi-tool, but you really don't need it. You only need a wrench to attach the pedals. You also get Allen wrench on there, but I checked all the bolts and they're basically already tight. It's always safe to check them, but you don't really need to. You can just fold the bike and basically ready to go. Here you can see the bike fully installed, which is basically just unfolding it and attaching the pedals. You can also take out the battery by using the seat like this. You have this little lever right here, you just pull it up and the seat goes up, so you don't have to detach the seat. You can just pull the battery out, which is secured with the key you have. You can connect the bike to the battery with this little cable right here, and of course just take it out if you need to charge it and then plug it back in, and then you can power the bike. So to power the bike you have this key fob, you can lock it, you can unlock it, you have the alarm which you can hear here, and then finally you have the power button which turns on this little screen right here, as you can also hear by the alarm going off. This screen has a couple functions, so you have this top button which shows you the trip distance and stuff like that. On the right you can also see your battery charge, which in this case was free. And then the most important button, the settings button. So this decides in what setting you are, eco, mid or high. So in eco mode while pedaling you get up to 15 kilometers an hour. In mid this goes up to 18, and then in high it goes between 22 and 25. This kind of depends on like how aerodynamic you are. If you're really tall you might have a harder time. Also if you're going uphill it might be a bit slower. And if you're going downhill it more easily reaches 25. In this case it was like 22, 23. If you don't pedal and twist the handlebar you will go 22 to 25 regardless of setting. Another button is this little horn button, which is really enjoyable, as you can hear in the live footage right here. Furthermore it also has the brakes, which I test here really quickly, but later on I have a more precise braking test. Here you can see a little cornering test in the wet as well semi-wet. It does quite alright for having 14-inch tires. That's why they're a little wider as well, giving you a little bit more grip. Here you can also see the suspension test, which it does have. I will go into that a little bit more later. And here another corner, which it does relatively fine even at top speed. Okay, enough beauty shots. Let's get into the finer details. So we have the seat with suspension. The seat itself is quite wide and also quite comfortable, especially if you come from race bikes like me. And it also has front suspension. As you can see in this next clip, going over a little bump right here. It's pretty alright, you don't have to bend your knees or anything to absorb the impact. Here you also see the adjustable setting of the bicycle seat. It can go all the way up, all the way down. It ranges from about 160 centimeters to like 193, 195. Same for the steering, which goes up and down as well. The bike has 2 disc brakes, one in the front, one in the back. As you can see, you can just operate them very nicely with your brake lever right there. They aren't ridiculously big as you get them on some mountain bikes, but you have to remember these are 14-inch wheels. It's a tiny bike, it's meant for city traffic, it goes 20-25, so these are well enough. The bike also possesses a second seat, which you can bring up to one other person. The max loading capacity is about 120 kilograms because obviously it's quite a tiny bike, so maybe a kid, but I wouldn't recommend another adult. If you ever forget to charge your battery, it also has a chain. Mostly you won't be using it too much. Obviously the pedal assist does quite a lot, but even then I found that the bike works best if you just use the throttle, which is quite comfortable. It also has these other buttons for the lights. It's a simple on and off switch. Here you can see the front light. Obviously it was quite bright outside, but you can still see. And the night is actually quite bright. And I see the backlight as well, way better than most other bicycles that you see on the road. And then if you push it down, you get the off button and you see it just goes off very nicely. In the front it's still a little bit reflecty, but you still see it's off. Like mentioned before, the wheels are quite tiny, only 14-inch, but they're a little bit wider than normal, which gives you a little bit more grip, which is quite important for these very tiny wheels. You notice that you're not super stable, especially if you're a little bit taller, but these wheels do a great job of preventing this. This is the first stage of folding. First you fold the handlebars and then you can fold the frame by simply just unclicking it. Here you see a little demonstration, so you just lift that up, then a little bit of force, clip it right there, and even then you still have to, put a little bit of force into it. I mean, this is a good thing, so your bike wouldn't just spontaneously fold while riding. And there you can see it's quite compact. And then here we see a little carrying test. The bike is about 22 kilos, so you have to get a good grip, but it's quite carryable. You see I'm holding it with one hand and it's quite manageable. I mean, most of the times you will just be rolling it or folding it for a very short amount of times anyways. Here you will see a little riding test. I had to go off-road a little bit for those shots before, but the suspension is quite good, as you can see here, putting it through its paces right there. But yeah, it's quite comfortable even on these kind of roads. I was kind of worried about the tires, but they're actually quite nice and thick, so I didn't have any problems with like punctures or like even feeling unstable or like not grippy enough even on this loose surface. Here you can also see that I'm using the different settings. Here I didn't want to go full speed, so I first put it on mid. Later on I decided, well, I can go a little bit faster. But here we're hitting the road again, so I'm putting on it high again. But as you can see from my legs, putting on it high is not ideal for the assisted biking. So I would just recommend twisting the lever and just going like this as I pull up my pants a little bit. But yeah, the biking is alright, but just twisting it is a lot more comfortable, especially on these higher settings like high and mid. At this point I wanted to see the balance of the bike, seeing how much I could lean and make little turns, as you can see right here. And to be fair, I did quite alright. At this point I also want to do a little brake test, so I did, but I didn't really push the brakes all the way. But then I saw this bridge, so I decided to do a proper brake test, where I could also measure it. So here I accelerated to full speed, and then I slammed the brakes right here, as you can hear, using all the tires. This is where I stop, about that marker, and then you can see I started braking right there. You can also see me try and measure it right here with some paces. I do 1, 2, and then like a tiny one. So that's about, what, 2.5 meters, which is pretty good, especially going at its top speed. So you should be safe from, hitting cars that pull out all of a sudden. So when should you consider this bike? I wouldn't use it if you're a biking enthusiast. Personally, I had a little bit of a problem with the lack of speed, but to be fair, the last bike I tested from this company went up to 45 and was also like a lot bigger bike. And in my free time I do mountain biking and race biking, which is also a lot speedier. But I can imagine some people don't like going that fast or can't even go that fast. And then this bike is perfect. Especially if you have to commute to the city by train, for example, and you have to cover a couple kilometers within the city, then this bike is really just perfect. You can fold it up in the train, you can fold it up in your working place if you really want to or need to. And the speed in that case is really not a hindrance, especially if you're only going to commute a couple kilometers. If you ever wondered what happens if you by yourself go sit on the back, then you do a little wheelie, which is quite cool. It doesn't damage the bike, but I would watch out a little bit.